Good morning. We've got 3 days left of our mystic immersion. And today we are taking the well celebrated poet and mystic Mirabai. And Mirabai grew up as it's kind of debatable. Some say she's a princess, some say she's nobility, as in the Hindu, as a Hindu. However, she is loved and esteemed in Hinduism, in Sikhism, and even in the Muslim tradition because of her ecstatic poetry. It's probably not surprising that there's not a lot of information about Mira or Mirabai. I would guess that's highly because she was a woman. And she also chose a very unusual lifestyle. It is said that when she was a little girl, that she saw a statue of Krishna, and a stranger who was holding the statue whispered something in her ear that left her very, very endeared to Krishna. And without mentioning anything to her mom about this, she was speaking with her mom, and her mom said, well, she was asking about getting married, and her mom joked and she said, well, you'll get married to Krishna. And Mirabai took that as a sign of what her beloved union would be like. So she has these early occurrences that ignite a love of Krishna within her being. Now, she actually does get betrothed to a human man, so she isn't able to avoid the system. But he dies in a battle. Now, it's believed she was born in the late 1400s and died in about 1547 or 1550. But of course, as you know, many warring times go on in many regions of the world during that era. And her husband ends up getting killed. Now, she's so outspoken when it comes to empowerment and social activism, empowerment for women. And she ends up being persecuted and an attempt to be poisoned by her own in-laws after her husband dies. With all of this, then she ends up wandering like a monk, but she's a woman. And so, of course, as a woman, she is going to have a different experience than a man has wondering about. She seeks out sadhus. She seeks out to be in the company of anyone that is considered a mystic. And she begins to write a lot of poetry and to play a lot of music. And just from those two things alone, the poetry and the music, she gains a very big reputation. There are thousands and thousands of poems attributed to her. However, when you do look at scholarly excavations of her work, probably a lot of them are not authentic. We can authenticate about a few hundred poems and songs. But she was so beloved that you have these three massive traditions taking on her poetry and her music. Yes, the Hindu tradition loved her, but to have Islam, to have the Sikhs love her as well is amazing. And she was a bit on the side of not all the authorities loved her, but she was beloved by many of the spiritual teachers. For instance, there's a Sikh book that's the main codex, if you will, the main canon. And there was a leader in the Sikh tradition who gave it to somebody who was well up in the hierarchy, but not the leader, gave it to him to go and get it bound. Well, what he does is he gets a second copy made that includes lots of Mirabai's poems in it as well. And he has that bound. Well, the leader in the hierarchy in Sikhism rejects that one he got bound, but she's so loved that it was preserved because of her poetry in it. So we We have here a human being that is alive in the culture today, just mainly through their poetry and their music. And what does that say to us then? She probably was esteemed for her teaching, but that wouldn't have been recorded largely because she was a wandering, homeless woman. And secondly, because she was such a human rights activist, so she wasn't kind of taken on by the political systems as a worthy teacher to support. What do we have from her? We have simply these utterances, and we have the use of a feminine voice. So she's a woman in the field giving voice. And we have it in literature that is probably among all literature in humanity, the most perduring music and poetry, right? The most perduring. So I want to read what the poem is that we're going to use today, and then we're also going to involve mantra. And it would be a mantra that most likely she would have chanted in some variation. We're not going to do a Krishna mantra. I enjoy all mantra, but I decided to involve other feminine entities since Mirabai is feminine instead of the Krishna that is supposedly more of a masculine presence. So let me read the poem that we're going to use today. All right, let this just kind of fall upon you. Unbreakable, O Lord, is the love that binds me to you. Like a diamond, it breaks the hammer that strikes it. My heart goes into you as the polish goes into the gold, as the lotus lives in the water. I live in you. Like the bird that gazes all night at the passing moon, I have lost myself dwelling in you. O beloved, return. So she's one of the largest contributors to the Bhakti movement, which, as you can tell by this poem, among her many poems, she's very oriented towards Krishna as lover, as beloved, as the all in which she dwells, as the one for which she longs for, as the one that comes to her. So there's a highly devotional nature in all of her poetry and all of her contribution. And what's interesting about this poem is she's presenting to us a paradox that we're all very, very familiar with. So up front, the bulk of the poem is all about how united, how lost she is in this beloved, in this love, and how that being in it is absolutely unbreakable. The title of the poem is Unbreakable. So unbreakable, O Lord, is the love that binds me to you. She's tasting it. She's tasting that unbreakableness. And she gives images of it. It's a diamond that cannot be even broken by a hammer. It's a heart that so goes into the heart of Krishna that polishing gold would have been indistinguishable. You wouldn't have seen the polish in the gold. You wouldn't have seen the gold on top of the polish, under the polish. It's part of what goes into make the gold a substance. Well, she gives 4 metaphors, doesn't she? The lotus that lives in the water, and the bird. So she has things that are strong and elemental. She has things that are merged She has things that are gazing upon. She has things that are amidst the water that can not exist without the water. And in the end, she says this very strong statement that she's lost dwelling in this one, this you. She's lost in it. So these are really strong statements, giving evidence of her experience, of her ecstatic experience. And then she ends it with this interesting line: "Oh, my beloved, return." So somehow in that experience of union, she is also experiencing what many might consider absence. And she's giving us a testimony that in the union, we are going to experience varying states. And one of them is absence. Oh, my beloved, return. She invites us into that mystery. What is that then? If we can taste union and at the same time say, "Where are you? Please come back." So since this plays out relationship with us, our mantra today is going to be one of relationship. The base words are Om Shri Anandaya Namaha. Super easy. Om, primordial sound. Om. Shri, Shri, blessings, salutations. Anandaya is bliss. Namaha, I bow to you. So what we're doing is we're opening up to the spaciousness. We're beginning with celebrating blessing, blessing, bliss. I bow to you, which is an inviting and a recognition. An inviting and a recognition. And then we're going to substitute in 4 different Hindu goddesses or deities: Lakshmi, Saraswati, Kali, Durga. So it's going to be Om Shri Anandaya Namaha, Om Shri Lakshmi Namaha, Om Shri Sarasvati Namaha, Om Shri Kali Namaha, Om Shri Durga Namaha. We're going to use a very simple tone. Now, these would have all been aspects of Krishna that Mirabai would have opened herself to. So I'm going to invite an awareness of Mirabai with us. And then I'm going to invite you to engage in opening to the ecstasy of this kind of experience and union. I invite you to close your eyes. And as we engage the mantra this morning in holy and sacred meditation, we open ourselves to experience what Mirabai experienced: the bliss of the unbreakable love between us and the beloved, the bliss of it being so strong, like a diamond that cannot be broken, the bliss of it being such a merging of us with the beloved that it is like a chemical composition of gold and polish where you cannot distinguish one from the other. And join in the mantra as you're able, inviting in a breath on the sound and on the breath. We open ourselves to the experience of what we chant. Om Namaha Mandaya Namaha. Om Shri Lakshmi Namaha. Om Shri Saraswati Namaha. Om Shri Kali Namaha. Om Shri Durga Namaha. Om Shri Anandaya Namaha. Om Shri Kali Namaha. Om Shri Lakshmi Namaha. Om Shri Saraswati Namaha. Om Shri Durga Namaha. Om Shri Anandaya Namaha. Om Shri Kali Namaha. Om Shri Lakshmi Namaha. Om Shri Saraswati Namaha. Om Shri Durga Namaha. Om Shri Anandaya Namaha. Om Shri Kali Namaha. Om Shri Lakshmi Namaha. Om Shri Saraswati Namaha. Om Shri Durga Namaha. Om Shri Anandaya Namaha. Om Shri Kali Namaha. Om Shri Lakshmi Namaha. Om Shri Saraswati Namaha. Om Shri Durga Namaha. Om Shri Anandaya Namaha. Om Shri Kali Namaha. Om Shri Lakshmi Namaha. Om Shri Saraswati Namaha. Om Shri Durga Namaha. Om Shri Anandaya Namaha. Om Shri Kali Namaha. Om Shri Lakshmi Namaha. Om Shri Saraswati Namaha. Om Shri Durga Namaha. Om Shri Anandaya Namaha. Om Shri Kali Namaha. Om Shri Lakshmi Namaha. Om Shri Saraswati Namaha. Om Shri Durga Namaha. Om Shri Anandaya Namaha. Om Shri Kali Namaha. Om Shri Lakshmi Namaha. Om Shri Saraswati Namaha. Om Shri Durga Namaha. Om Shri Anandaya Namaha. Om Shri Kali Namaha. Om Shri Lakshmi Namaha. Om Shri Saraswati Namaha. Om Shri Durga Namaha. Om Shri Anandaya Namaha. Om Shri Kali Namaha. Om Shri Lakshmi Namaha. Om Shri Saraswati Namaha. Om Shri Durga Namaha. We open into the spaciousness that is the unbreakable place we encounter the divine. Bring our practice to a close, keeping your eyes closed, letting her words rest upon you once again. Let them be your own, unbreakable. O Lord, is the love that binds me to you. Like a diamond, it breaks the hammer that strikes it. My heart goes into you as the polish goes into the gold, as the lotus lives in the water. I live in you. Like the bird that gazes all night at the passing moon, I have lost myself dwelling in you. Oh, my beloved. Oh, my beloved. Oh, my beloved. Return. You're ready. I invite you to open your eyes. Bring the palms together in front of the heart. And greet the day as a melody of the divine. Blessings, my friend.